Welcome to our Giant Veg channel. We just come over to see Dale Toden in the Ston Easton Park Hotel near Bath. We're just going to have a quick tour of his giant vegetables and some of the kitchen garden vegetables. Then we'll just have a quick chat now with Dale Toden. We've had a visit also from Peter Devenold and his wife Marcia and their grandson. So we'll just go and have a quick look. So these onions look pretty good. This one's pretty impressive.
Hi Kevin. They're all growing okay, yeah. These two I think have grown better than that one. That one was planted up a couple of weeks before the rest in the big pot. And then these two in the smaller pots, especially this one in the white one, seems to be growing rapidly now. Putting on more weight than the one in the big pot for sure.
So you don't water these very much, do you?
No, these get maybe 2 litres a week. Last week they had a bit less, the week before a bit more, depending on the heat really. But in here, if you look at the back of the greenhouse, I've got some loofah gourds growing there. And the aim is to have them growing up and then back along these sort of wires, and they'll should shade this whole area, or give some shade anyway later on in the season.
It's quite hot in here now. I've got a sweat on. Is it about 80 degrees?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't put a thermometer in there because it only causes stress, doesn't it? We've got a fan though.
So how many are you growing? You're growing 4 or 5, is it?
6. 6, yeah, that's all I've grown. I started with 10 that Fred Hogg gave me because I never had any electric down here in the winter. Fred Hogg sent me maybe 10 or a dozen plants. I thinned them down, I've got room for 6, so I'd sooner look after 5 or 6 properly than have a whole bed that will either run to seed or dry out.
So you've designed a new cooling system. Paul Rochester's given us some ideas of growing in white pots, which
I think
cools down the plants.
In theory, the white pots work. That should work perfectly. But we've got like a irrigation hose that runs along the back of the loofahs, and then whatever was spare, I've just run that all around the top of these pots. So whenever I turn it on when it's hot, the sides of the pots will be sort of washed down with cold water. It might not really have any effect, but it won't do any harm, I shouldn't think.
We'll go over now and have a look at your other vegetables. Jamie, you nearly smashed the pane.
Yeah, you nearly smashed your greenhouse, Jamie.
I managed to find this secret cave and I couldn't help but miss the bright light coming out of there. What have you got in here?
Right, well I'll use this area throughout the winter for propagating stuff. So I've got a heated propagator here, and then I've got a light above it that's on for maybe 20 hours a day. So it's quite warm in here. At the moment I'm just using this to chip some various seeds. So I've got some cantaloupe seeds from James Hartley in there. And then in here I've got some tomato seed from Fabrice Budio, Medi, and also from Dan McCoy. Some plants already going there. And then in here I've got some long runner bean seed from, well, half of them from Peter Glazebrook. I've actually potted a load on already. They're all starting to root already, you can see. So they're all, well, they're pretty much ready now to be potted on. And then I've got another dozen in here from Kevin that I'll use if I need some later plants really for the Malvern show. So they're in sort of moist J cloth. Then put them in a ice cream tub. Put the lid on so it stays nice and damp in there. Put it all back there. Stick a lid on just to stop any evaporation. That's around 25 degrees in there.
So it's pretty warm.
Yeah, fairly warm, and then as soon as they start shooting a root out, I find that they don't really need that heat anymore, and then pretty much whatever heat you can give them in a cold greenhouse will be enough then.
You've got a sweat on in here, so I think it's
warm in here.
So
this is the secret.
Before you run away, what's that you're hiding there on your right?
Oh, this is just a spare marrow plant. obviously there's a bit of pressure on this year to try and get another big one after the last 2 years, so I've kept this one as a spare, giving it a load of light just in case something goes wrong with the ones outside.
We'll go and have a look at those in a minute.
Yeah.
But first we'll go and have a look at where you're going to grow these giant tomatoes. So this is where you're going to grow the giant tomatoes. How many are you going to grow?
Might grow a dozen, maybe 12 or 14, something like that in here. I grew them in the same bed last year and got them to around £4, just above. We got these are the giant marigolds that came in the EGVGA pack. So I always grow marigolds with tomatoes.
I can never get that one right. This is the European Giant Vegetable Growers Association, so whatever that stands for.
Yeah. So
I'm just looking at the thermometer here. It's just as hot as in America. It's 100 degrees in here.
I'll give it a damp down in a bit. That should cool it down a bit. Can't do any more than that, so I don't worry too much.
So will you use the Dan McCoy method? Which is just growing them to about 20 inches, just setting the first mega bloom, or first or second mega bloom, and then...
Yeah, as soon as a good bloom's set on there, then I'll hit the top. I like the idea of just hitting the top off wherever it is, so if it's that high, then, and you've got a nice big bloom set on it, then take the top off. If you've got a plant that high, and there's a nice big bloom on it, then hit the top off, and then as soon as you've got a fruit set, everything will go into the fruit then.
So do you use the same principle with the onions as the tomatoes and not water them very much? So
I think tomatoes need it. It's a bit more important to get the water in more even with the tomatoes, because otherwise they split. Whereas the onions, I just don't water them at all, nothing. And then that way you can't give them too much, you can't give them too little. They're down finding their own water then. If they haven't got enough water, they'll die, and none have died this year. So
we'll have to be careful, because I think the army of visitors today have got in to get the Roundup to spray some of your giant marrows.
Yeah, happy days.
But yeah, these blue things flying in front of us, they're just insect sticky traps, just to...
Yeah, I'll stick various traps like that, yellow and blue ones, all around the place, just to catch anything that's about, really.
It's quite a good idea putting them on some string, because they're flying around then, aren't they? Yeah, just to catch the flies.
You want them the same height as your plants, because if you've got these yellow traps and they're up there, but your plants are here, then you might catch everything that wants to fly up that high, but everything that wants to fly at this sort of height all around your plant, so you're wasting your time.
A lot of people have had problems with greenfly this year. We've had quite a number of greenfly on the cabbages and beetroot. Do you think that's because of the dry weather or the inclement weather?
Possibly, yeah, or a mild winter, I don't really know. I have a problem from every year, so it's just a case of, you know, I've got some, if I grab this stuff here, which is Vitax 2-in-1 Pest and Disease Control. I only really use that for aphids and greenfly. That's
an organic one.
And it's organic, yeah, and it works a treat, so there's no need to use anything heavier than that. We
was actually talking with Raymond Blanc at the Chelsea Flower Show, and his comments were these tomatoes grown with loads of chemicals? And
no, the organic ones, but they're organic. The big ones I grew last year in this bed. So this is basically the richest soil on the whole estate, really, and all I've added to this year is a load of wood ash, beech wood ash from when I cut the hedges down. What else have I put in? Hardly anything else. That's pretty much it. Maybe some bloodfish and bone before planting, and some humates, and that's it, pretty much. And now, like this bed, I've roughly turned over last week, ready, and the soil in it, you know, you can put your hand right in there, and it's just like compost, really. Is that a Welsh dragon you got tattooed on your arm? No, it's probably not a Welsh dragon, no.
Dale's just filling up his rainwater harvesting that comes from all the roofs of the greenhouses. He's just devised a really cost-effective way of watering, which is recycling
an old milk bottle. I always use these for watering anything that's still in pots. You just jab a load of holes in, or take the top off, hit a nail through, make a load of holes, and it's perfect for just watering enough, just so you can individually you know, you can water individual pots, you can water around the edge of the pots.
So these are all your chilies, they need to be kept a bit drier, don't they?
Yeah, they all need to be on the dry side, that's why like this one's got a sign on, no water, otherwise, you know, the other gardener might come in and eat generally, will just give everything a load of water.
Adrian Ashfield, who built our website, he's just setting up a website called chilitemple.co.uk, and
okay.
I'm sure you can give him a couple of tips, or he's got plenty, I'm sure.
I'll get some tips from them, yeah. But yeah, so I just use it's like 2 pints, so 1.14 litres, and I use that maybe twice a week to water the onions. Each onion will get like 2 of them.
Or one of them.
Or one of them. Yeah, it's just easier than using a big watering can. You can be more direct and put it exactly where you want to, really.
We'll go into the greenhouses now and have a look at your mini leeks. Peter's little visitors having a little rest.
Yeah.
We'll just come into the greenhouses now. It's quite a big glass house. I've got a sweat on again. Need to go out for some fresh air in a minute. This is Dale's pumpkin. He said the problem with this one, what's been the problem?
It just wants this. It seems vigorous. It just wants to go straight up. I'm having trouble getting it to vine along the soil. This 2096 Maya seed this came from, and so I think it was exactly the same seed, or from the same pumpkin that was the most expensive seed in the world this year.
The one that Matthew Oliver is growing.
That's right, yeah. So exactly as, you know, it's sort of like a brother or sister of that plant. But I'm finding it difficult to get it to lie down and vine.
It's probably just so powerful, is it, the plant?
Yeah, it seems really vigorous, yeah. Obviously, the trouble with this greenhouse is that it's got to cross a path, so I've got to put a big deep grow bag to go across the path, and then it's got to go up a slope, and then I'll get a fruit set, and then I'll have to cut the door apart and some of the greenhouse in order to get the actual fruit out. But
I don't think it's going to fit through that door.
no, they won't. As soon as it gets anywhere near sort of 800, 900 pound plus, they won't fit out the door, so we'll have to adjust that. Whereas the squash that I'm growing down there is growing perfectly. It's just growing all along the ground, nice and easy. Don't know if you can really see that one from here, but the squash plant's growing perfectly. The pumpkin's a pain.
So this pumpkin is going to be going to the Malvern Autumn Show end of September?
Well, yeah, pretty much everything I'm growing that's going to be exhibited rather than eaten in the restaurant, it's all going to Malvern. I'm not really going to do anything else, just all going up there.
So you had one red card, you can have plenty more this year, I bet.
Well, another one would be alright. I'd be happy with another one. If you have one red card there, then you sort of a little bit of pressure from yourself to do the same again, if you see what I mean.
I think it's more the taking part that counts, really, and just...
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. It is the taking part, that's right. But so it may have been easier if I hadn't won anything last year, because then I could just take everything up and have no real expectations, whereas...
What, and chopped your marrow in half?
Yeah, chopped it in half and then still only beat you slightly. Whereas this year, you want to try and improve on what you're doing every single year, otherwise you feel like you've sort of let yourself down. So
I think that's, well, through the Facebook group we've seen Dennis Morton, and over the past 12 months his growing has come on. I think it's just in part through all the help he gets from the Facebook group, and
it's just every single person's got different extracts of advice that everyone else can take on board, and if you can put them all together, then everyone's helping everyone, if you see what I mean. So I think that the Facebook page and everything is just making everyone better at growing, really.
hopefully that'll translate then into more people coming to the shows.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. The more people in the shows, the better.
So we'll go over now and have a look at your Paul Rochester leeks. So these are the Paul Rochester leeks. Paul currently holds the world's largest leek record. It's just over 23 pounds. That was exhibited at the Malvern Autumn Show last year. I don't know if Dale will get 24 pounds, but I'm sure he'll give it his best shot. So you impressed with these, Dale?
Yeah, they unbelievable growth on them, to be honest. Ever since I got them from Paul, I had a dozen in, I can't really remember, in the winter anyway, and ever since I've started potting them on, they're vigorous. More vigorous than anything else I've grown. Massive great flags on them.
So the flags are about 4.5 inches in diameter, aren't they?
Yeah, really thick, yeah. And the only trouble is trying to keep them down. I find that they grow so strongly that their leaves want to go straight up in the air, and then all of a sudden they'll snap, and then you'll get a crack across the flag. So when it's really warm like this, I've just been coming in here and just sort of rolling the flags down like that. And
just doing that in the warmth of the day, really.
Yeah, as soon as it's warm enough, you can feel when they're ready, because they're floppy. And you can sort of move them about a bit and get them how you want them. Whether that's the right thing to do or not, I'm not really sure, but I'm only growing them for giants, so.
Do you think you'll use these in the restaurant?
Yeah, they'll use these, and also they'll use these. These are pendles from a local grower, Harry Godden, and you know, these are perfect for the restaurant because you'll have a minimum of a foot. If I put another blanch on there, 18 inches of white that they can use in there, so they're, you know, massively better than the spindly little leeks you dig out of the garden. They taste good as well, so and they'll look nice for all the guests that walk around.
So these will be used by Martin, who's the head chef at Ston Easton Park?
That's right, yeah, he's looking forward to using these, yeah.
What would be good is if we could have some giant veg recipes.
Yeah, he'll do that for sure, yeah. And then when we plant these onions here, they'll get reasonably big. If I can get them anywhere near sort of £8, but then have a few good enough to show together, then I'll be happy. And their growth's good at the moment.
We've just completed now the tour of inside of the greenhouse at the Ston Easton Park Hotel. If you've got any comments, please feel free to leave them at the bottom of the YouTube channel and this video. Subscribe to our channel, and then hopefully you too can come along to the Malvern Autumn Show, the Peterborough Show, and some of the other shows dotted around the UK, and meet some of the growers, and maybe you could pick up a couple of red cards too. But as Dale said, it's all about the taking part that counts. We're one big community, and that's where we want to stay. So good luck to everybody, and we'll see you at the shows. Pop back every month for these updates, and if you've got any other comments, please feel free to leave them.